Good morning. I'm Pat Wattam with the Pat Wattam team here at Remax First, and I have Kevin Dinkel with me with Advantage Services. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Pat.
Thanks for stopping by to visit with me.
Well, I always enjoy visiting with you.
Well, I always have to call you whenever it's time to have a pre-inspect for my sellers.
That's right. It's the best time to inspect it.
It is. I try to tell people the worst time to have it inspected and find out I got issues is after I've got a purchase agreement on it and we agreed on a price.
That's right.
So what are some of the things you're seeing out there now that you hadn't seen a lot in the past couple of years?
Well, we always find, because of our climate, we always find issues with moisture intrusion, deterioration. We find, a lot of termite damage and that type of stuff because it's just because of our climate.
Yes.
And here lately we've had a lot of hailstorms, more than we used to get.
That's for sure.
And so we're seeing a lot of hail damage on roofs, and the type of hail we get it's a kind of soft, smaller hail. Mm-hmm. So you don't get the big chunks missing from your roof. You end up with a lot of granule loss and that kind of stuff. It's more subtle damage. It's not, real apparent. And but it does create damage and reduces the life of the roof.
Well, this was several years ago. We had a big hailstorm somewhere here, but I didn't know we had one. I didn't see any granules on the ground, and I know my neighbor got a new roof. I'm going, what? There's no way. I called two roofers and going, yeah, Pat, you got damage all over your roof. I mean, as a homeowner, we don't really see that. How are we going to know that we need to even call the,
Well,
people?
Seeing what's going on with your neighbors is a good sign sometimes. If you see a lot of neighborhood homes getting roofs, then it's something you may want to look into. One thing I have found, if you suspect you have hail damage, call the roofer first.
Yes.
And because some of these roofing companies, they have relationships with the insurance company, and it's much easier for them to convince the adjuster that the roof has hail damage on their first visit, rather than trying to get them to change their mind after they've made a decision. So
yes.
My suggestion is get a roofer out there. If he thinks you have hail damage, let him meet the adjuster, and then hopefully the insurance company will agree and you get a new roof.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I learned that lesson, it's a long time ago. I guess it's our second house here. We had a tornado come through Sherwood Forest, and it was a tree topper. And so we had a lot of damage, and so, whatever. And so I got denied by the first, my insurance company denied me. Then I had a second roofer come out there. They still denied me again. And the third roofer said, here's what you got to show them. And he came out and showed them all the granules in my gutter. Mm-hmm. And then, boom, I got all the money I needed to replace my roof. So I learned then you got to have them work together.
Right.
It's a great tip.
Yeah, and if you have gutters, that's a good place because the granules collect there,
mm-hmm.
so that's easy to see. And then also at the downspout, if you have a big pile of them at the downspout or on your driveway, and every time it rains, some of those granules do come off. Mm-hmm. But in an event like a hailstorm or something like that, of course, you get a much larger amount that come off. And it does reduce the life of the roof.
Now, we just said gutters, and this wasn't going to be part of our conversation, but now that you brought it up, I hate gutters.
Yeah, I don't care for them
either. I hate gutters. How many houses do I go to and the water has backed up at some point? I got rotted soffits and fascias.
Yeah, in my opinion, they cause more problems than they solve. Mm-hmm. Because the type of rain we get, most of our rains, the gutters can't handle the flow of water anyway, so they overflow and back
mm-hmm.
up. So it's like not having them, except now you're getting your overhangs rotted.
Right.
Now there are some instances where you need them to keep the water, if it's a walkway or going into a front entry or something, you may need one. Or if you have a raised foundation and you're having a problem with water going under the house, you may need them for that. And we get a lot of comments from people moving from up north because they have basements and they need gutters, mm-hmm. but we don't need them down here. And so, no, I'm with you. I don't like them.
So speaking of things that cause rot, what about balconies?
Yeah, balconies are a real issue. In the past 2 weeks, we've had two homes that had balconies that had major deterioration and damage and resulting termite damage from balconies that leak. And these were not old homes, and these were not inexpensive homes. These were relatively new, very expensive homes that had a lot of damage from the moisture. It starts out, coming in through the balcony, mm-hmm. and then either you get just pure deterioration from the water, or you end up with termites, especially with Formosan termites in our area. This one we looked at yesterday, It had Formosan termites.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never seen those.
Well, and the thing about it is with the Formosans, the swarmers, if they happen to land where you have a leak from a balcony, they don't have to go back to the ground to get the moisture. So they can subcolonize up high on the balcony and create a lot of damage, and you don't have the telltale of the tunnel going to the ground. You don't have any of that. And so this particular house, they didn't realize they had any damage till they had some exit holes in the drywall. And what was interesting about this one is the exit holes that we could see were minimal. And
Really?
yeah, you could see a few exit holes, but it wasn't that much. But when we opened the wall up, they had major termite damage.
Wow.
And major colony of Formosan termites set up in this house.
That is amazing. You know, I've heard about that. I know in New Orleans it's
a huge problem.
Pretty. I saw one guy who lost a whole bathroom wall.
Yeah.
In New Orleans, and here it's, you know, when we had termites at our house a few years back, Jeff with your company came out to look because my termite company said, "Oh, you have Formosans and you aren't covered." And I'm going, "Well, yeah, I have a Formosan policy." And Jeff came out and said, "Those are regular termites, Pat." So how would I, the layperson, look at a termite and know the difference?
It's really tough to tell. The Formosans are a little bit larger, and they also, the Formosan actually, if you hold one in your hand, they'll actually try to bite you. I mean, they don't,
Really?
but it looks like they're trying to bite you.
Swarmers there.
Yeah, and most of the termite contracts, though, if there's a moisture source other than the ground, it voids most of those contracts anyway, because there's no way for the pest company to prevent that from happening.
Right.
If you have say a roof leak and some swarmers happen to land there and they set up a colony, they have the treatment that the company did with the perimeter liquid treatment around the house, or the baits or whatever.
Right.
They have no way to prevent that from happening.
That's a really good point. I want to go back to one more time while we still have time to talk about this, because I love talking to Kevin. So, you know, again, my hot button for all my sellers and all my listeners out there, you know, I've been in my house 20 years now, Kevin, which is a long time for me. Usually I'm a 6-year person that I'm out, but I've been, you know, buying other things. So, do you think it would be a smart idea as a homeowner to have my house inspected every 10 years or so if I'm going to stay there for the long haul? Or do I just wait because the rules change, like what we have to have today probably didn't have to have 20 years ago, as far as, you know, GFCIs and all that kind of stuff? What is your opinion about that? Or is it before you put your house on the market, get it inspected so that you know what you're dealing with?
Yeah.
What's your 2 cents?
Well, of course, before you put the house on the market, that's the best time to inspect it. And for many reasons, and, you know, one of them is if a problem is found, like we did one yesterday, and they have a roof issue. Well, if we would have inspected that house for the buyer, they would have only had 3 days to make a decision on what they were going to do. Whereas now they have time to get the insurance company involved, they have time to get opinions from multiple roofers, so it gives them time to make a decision. But as far as just for a homeowner, I wouldn't wait every 10 years. I would have it inspected every 2 or 3 years. We call it a maintenance inspection, because, you know, it's much cheaper if we discover that your wooden windows need to be caulked. And today you can caulk it, rather than 4 years from now it's rotted and you have to replace it.
Right.
And the same with commercial buildings. We find, you know, in strip shopping centers and things like that, you know, extensive damage that the building owner or the tenant just didn't notice. And it's things that the maintenance could easily repair it, as opposed to prevent it from happening, as opposed now major repairs.
You know, you said something a while ago that I never really thought too much about, because I always think about getting my houses pre-inspected for my sellers, because I want to know if I have a big ticket item up front. That's what I wanted to save them, just so when we sell the house, we have the sales price, that's going to be a true sales price instead of that sales price minus $4,000 more or something.
Right.
But what you just said is something I've run into recently, is that I only have 3 days to respond back to that inspection. And the one I got the other day, they gave it to me on a Friday morning. So, and it was a holiday weekend. So I didn't have, I had asked for an extension for a couple of days so we could get some people out there, so we'd know if the seller could afford to do the repairs. And if we'd done them up front with an inspection like I recommended, I wouldn't have that issue, but that's okay.
Well, and not only that, if the buyer is the one asking for the repairs, you have someone else helping you make decisions on what you're going to spend your money on. Whereas if you do it, before you have a buyer, you're making the decision, you're consulting with your agent or with some contractor, as opposed to the someone else, the buyer, putting his input in and what he wants done.
That's very true. And my favorite thing too is to be able to give the buyer, the potential buyer, a copy of my inspection that we've already had done with what the seller has already taken care of and what he's not going to do. So the buyer knows from day one what the situation is. Now, I know every inspector has their little hot buttons.
Right.
It may not have the same things, but the big ticket items are all the same.
Should be the same.
And that way, then we are in good shape there. So I just want to say again, pre-inspect your house, please, please.
Well, it also it can be included as part of the disclosure, so it shows your potential buyer that the willingness of the seller trying to present the house as it really is.
Oh, I think that's very true. And the other thing you mentioned before about the termites and the balcony and things, I've had 3 clients over my 36 years that went to court over after the sale of the house, and all 3 of them were termite related.
Yeah.
And you may remember the house we bought from a client that had termite damage, and they had done buddy boarding, is what it called,
Right.
which is, who cares, that works for me. But the poor buyer was so terrified of it, and as a professional, I'm going, keep a contract on it, pull the wall out, take a look. If it's fine, it's fine. But I think for most buyers, it scares them to death. So I think that's why it's important to have your inspection up front, because y'all would see termites and say, you need to get a termite person out here to take a look.
Right.
I think that's also very crucial.
It is. And in that particular case, I remember it. And we even had the termite issues in the report, but they didn't read it good.
They didn't read it. No, they didn't.
That's another thing. Read your report.
Yeah,
people.
read your report. We tend to skim over those things and look at the pictures, but the 2 you just did for me recently, I took my highlighter, went through it, said, this is what a buyer's going to ask for. I know what the buyer's going to look at. I said, and here are my hot buttons here. So now they have here's the other things I don't really care about. I think it's don't do them.
Well, and as you know, the buyer is emotionally involved. And so a lot of things they overlook because they love the house. They don't care. They just want to move in and of course, that's before they move in.
Right.
Once they move in, then they do care.
Yes.
And that's, it's so important for the real estate agent to keep everybody calm and keep them looking at what they need to look at.
Right. And I know in the case of the house we bought, she had gotten somebody to give her a bid to replace all the wood. It was a wood house with vinyl siding. It was going to be like $14,000. We bought the house because I love the house, and we still have the house, by the way. It's a great money maker.
It's a great rental.
Yeah, and we put vinyl siding in there for like less than $6,000.
Yeah.
It's called shopping and
Exactly.
and knowing who to call.
Right.
And one of the things I like about Advantage Services and Kevin, and I know there's a lot of great ones out there. We use more than Kevin, but Kevin's one of my go-to guys because he does all my personal stuff for my house. So is that you have a list of people that you have nothing to do with these people.
Right.
It's just a list of contractors you've dealt with in the past, and you gave it to my clients yesterday, and they were thrilled to have the name of someone to do their wood windows for them. So I think that's a nice service you provide.
Yeah, well, we have found through the years that actually we did it. It's a selfish reason because service people a lot of times come behind the inspector and blow things way out of proportion.
Oh, yeah.
And so, we have found service people that are honest and that, present the problem in the true light of what it is, rather than trying to make it bigger to make themselves look, important and it can overcharge the client.
We get that a lot,
Yeah.
so I love that. Well, Kevin, thanks for coming in today.
Well, I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure to see you and pick your brain on the latest things happening out there.
Yeah.
Have a great day, and I think it's going to be a little wet again today.
Yeah, it is, unfortunately.
So, y'all, again, if you ever have questions about having your home inspected or pre-inspected, call Advantage Services, Kevin Dinkel. What's the best number, Kevin?
Well, if you want to schedule an inspection, the office number is 225-753-8114. My cell number is 225-921-0902. If you ever have a question about anything, whether we did the inspection or not, feel free to give us a call.
Well, can I say one more plug here? That's my favorite thing about you from day one. Before I knew you, you would let my clients who weren't at the inspection, they were out of town, call you and go with the inspection. Made me look really great as a realtor, so thank you so much.
Well, that's what we get paid for.
Okay, see you later, Kevin.
Nice to see you.
Bye, y'all.